Alright guys, welcome into Formula 1 news. The tides of battle this season will largely be determined by what happens with the upgrades that teams bring over the next couple of weekends. Miami and Imola and Spain will be massive weekends in the championship fight to come. Red Bull have made it very clear why they are continually bringing upgrades and exactly how much performance they expect them to generate. Will this prove true given Red Bull's correlation issues? And Ferrari, they have also revealed why they are still so gung-ho about trying to develop the F25 despite the fact that the championship challenge seems to be somewhat out of reach. Are they going to be right to make this decision with 2026 looming? Both of these teams very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to begin with. We're going to start here. This is Mohammed Ben Sulayem, and can you believe it? He must be feeling the pressure because yesterday he did this post on his Instagram and he said the following. Now I find this post so funny, right? Here he is when he was a driver, right? Back in his racing days. So just to make it very clear, obviously, that he understands the needs and the principles of the drivers and all this. So I thought it's just brilliant PR. But he does say this: following constructive feedback from drivers across our 7 FIA World Championships. I find it kind of funny, right? Because effectively this is around the censorship acts. I mean, Appendix B referring to swearing and fines and championship point deductions and all that type of stuff. The teams, all the drivers have basically said, this is a clown show, we need to do something about it, and, well, we are now seeing the potential repercussions. I think that Ben Sulayem is clearly feeling the pressure. I mean, the rally drivers, obviously the Formula 1 drivers as well, the Grand Prix Drivers Association has made their point very clear in recent weeks, and, of course, for very good reason too. So, you know, Ben Sulayem makes a statement and says, I am considering making improvements to Appendix B. So not I am, but I am considering. So, you know, isn't this great gesture of goodwill? As a former rally driver, I understand the demands they face better than most. Like, yeah, sure. Appendix B is a key part of the International Sporting Code and is central to helping keep the sport accessible for all of our sporting family. Humans make the rules, and humans can improve the rules. This principle of continuous improvement is something I've always believed in and is at the heart of all we do at the FIA. So, look, Ben Sulayem has been under a lot of pressure. His right-hand man quit the other day, basically saying that he literally cannot uphold any of the principles that the FIA meant to stand for because of, effectively, read between the lines, the actions of the top man. Now Ben Sulayem's given a statement on it. Is anything going to change? Maybe not in the short term, but I think my feeling is that if he wouldn't do this, if he wasn't feeling like, okay, I need to say something here or I need to act in this certain way to maybe regain some support, or potentially that he might be considering the upcoming elections, right, in this type of discussion. So that's that for the day, but the FIA drama I'm sure isn't too far away anyway. This is Sergio Perez, and, well, we talked about the rumours the other day that Perez is likely getting the Cadillac drive. When this is going to be confirmed, if it is confirmed, is a big question, but rumour has it it might happen as soon as, like, this weekend. Now, it was spotted today that Sergio Perez's private jet, it wasn't actually where he had one, but he flew into Miami. So we can see here flight time, land and all this stuff on, I think this is Flight Radar, right? Which I spent a bit of time on from time to time. So we can see that he flew from Toluca to Miami for a day. And then, I mean, he, what is this, arrived in like, you know, 2 hours, 39-hour flight time out there. He landed at 13:28 and then he departed about 3 hours later. So, yeah, what's happened here? Assuming that this is actually true, this was Perez on the plane. But yeah, he flew from Mexico into Miami, and then 3 hours later, he flew back again. So, yeah, what's going on there, right? What happened to make this a possibility? Was there a contract involved? Like, who knows, right? It's anyway the theory of the day, because this weekend there is meant to be a launch event for Cadillac on Saturday, and reportedly Perez might well be back in Miami. Now, I think people said that he's got a house in Miami, which is like, okay, sure, but I mean, you're gonna, what, go home and pick up your keys? You know what I'm saying, right? Like, you're gonna go for 3 hours? Doesn't really add up, right? It's probably something else going on. So, yeah, don't know what you guys think in the comments below, but at least keep an eye on that one. The other driver rumour of the day is actually around George Russell. We'll keep an eye on this. Look, until anything is signed, I don't really believe what Toto Wolff has to say, but Toto says, when asked about the timeline on Russell's contract, he says, pretty soon he's going to get a new deal, I guess before the summer. When Hamilton was here, they never discussed the contract prior to June, July. It was always the summer. other drivers, it's abnormal they're signing it so early. And basically he said that over this European stint, they will discuss it more. And he says he has a contract, we just need to agree on the final details. He says, in this sport, performance speaks, so from my side, there is no pressure. That's actually what Russell said. But, the point being, I guess, that Toto says, yeah, Russell's going to get a new deal. We're going to work it out over the next couple of months. Maybe even before the summer, we're going to get the deal signed, and we just need to figure out the final details. But look, until that contract is signed, I can't rule out the possibility of them deciding to go and get Max Verstappen if, of course, he would want to leave. The other piece today is on Miami for the Grand Prix side. This is Pirelli confirming that they will again use softer compounded tyres. Now, we saw this in Jeddah. Did it really work in terms of delivering a better Grand Prix? Maybe not, but the feeling is anyway, softer compound equals more degradation, equals more stops, equals probably a more entertaining Grand Prix. And I don't mind that theory. It has its problems as well on some degree. I mean, Jeddah nowadays, the dirty air in Sector 1 is such an absolute, it's just a horror show to be honest, that it does cause problems. But in Miami, there will be C3, C4 and C5 choices, which are effectively, well, I think they have a C6 this year, but basically the softest compounds that are going. And they think that's going to be the strategy to make even more exciting race dynamics, as it were. So we'll see if that works out this weekend. But certainly Pirelli are trying, and the FIA are trying, to effectively make the races more entertaining by making them a two-stop strategy. And you can debate whether that's a valid idea or not, right? You might argue that no, Pirelli should bring the tyres that they think are best suited for the track, whatever metrics they may describe. But there is a real feeling that Pirelli are actively trying to choose softer compounds to try and spice up the races. Look, I don't mind it, but I can understand why certain teams might sit there and say, are you really doing your job for the people that you should be doing your job for? But at the end of the day, this is entertainment. Quickly on McLaren, there has been discussions around if an upgrade arrives for the McLaren, which it will at some point, which car gets it first. Of course, as we know, over the last couple of years, the early upgrades tended to go to Norris, right? We saw this in 2023, was it? When they really started to finally kick on during part of that season, and we saw that it was Oscar who did not get the upgrades immediately, around about Austria time. Lando got the upgrades, Oscar didn't, and that's exacerbated the performance differential between the two drivers. Last year, again, I think it was true, was it not, that in Miami, when they brought the upgrades to Lando, I don't think Piastri had them quite yet. So there's been a lot of talk about that, really, and whether McLaren may at some point decide that something needs to give. Like, what would they do if this weekend they have one set of upgrades ready? Which car do they give it to? Or do they choose to delay it to make sure that both cars are treated fairly, right? I mean, that's an idea as well. Because the last couple of years, it's been pretty clear that, okay, Lando is our leader in the championship. Lando is our #1 driver, although they won't say so explicitly. And I think that was true the last couple of years. This year, though, it's a different story. They're very close in the championship, but as of late, Piastri has looked like the stronger force. So, an upgrade arrives, what do? Do you give it to Oscar first? At the end of the day, McLaren aren't much at risk in the Constructors' Championship, I wouldn't argue. So maybe if you're McLaren, you say, all right, we've got one upgrade ready, we're just going to save it, and we'll give it to you guys both at the same time. That's probably what they will do. But I do think that there will be some degree of uproar and certainly discussion when team order conversations come around. For now, I think it's too early, but if you had to choose a driver to back and a driver to prioritize, look, it's been Lando for them for the last couple of years, but right now it would probably have to be Oscar, would it not? Definitely interested to hear your thoughts on that in the comments, because it may well be relevant sooner than we think. McLaren will have upgrades in the pipeline, but not quite yet. The teams that are bringing them swiftly are Ferrari and Red Bull. They seem to be the two teams most committed still to 2025. I'm sure McLaren are as well. I mean, they can't really not be. Max is right there in the championship. McLaren have to keep improving, but Ferrari and Red Bull seem to be the teams that are giving their utmost to try and make it work. Now, for Red Bull, it's understandable. We'll discuss their upgrade here in a second. For Ferrari, it makes slightly less sense because they don't really look like they're in the fight this year, in the drivers nor in the constructors. The SF25 has numerous issues. There's a feeling that when it's on low fuel and they have slow corners on the track, the car is just terrible. And there's lots of talk about what they're going to change the car as, the upgrades they're working on over the next few rounds. But there is a feeling, depending on who you ask, that the upgrades may either remain or be deferred. There was an article from Motorsport today that said that Ferrari have an upgrade on the way for Imola, which of course the race after Miami. They could bring parts this weekend in Miami, but they've elected not to because it's a sprint weekend, the correlation is going to be a struggle to get it right, so they would prefer to wait. But the new argument today from De Kester is that actually they are going to wait until after the technical directive in Spain that clamps down on the front wings, and then they'll be able to get a better picture of where they stand. Now, this in context makes a little bit more sense as to why Ferrari are still so gung-ho on the season, right? Because, yes, they have issues, but it is very much recognised that the pecking order could change in Spain. If you guys aren't aware, the front wing flexibility is getting clamped down on heavy, and, well, the feeling is that McLaren will take a hit for that. Now, Red Bull, they may be in a better position competitively than compared to where they are now. That is, you know, probably going to be true based on what most of the teams seem to be implying. But I think McLaren may get them back at some point because, well, Red Bull had to spend a lot of money on developing new flexible technology that they are currently using. Certainly not as good or as high-tech as McLaren's seems to be. But that will be useless too from Spain onwards. So Red Bull have wasted what, you know, auto racers say is about $1 million. And given the fact that they're working simultaneously 25-26, that's equivalent to like $2 million in a normal season anyway. So it is a big waste, right? Red Bull have had to waste a lot of resource. And that means that maybe when it comes to upgrades around the summer break, you guys know that like Austin, Texas tends to be the scene of like a common upgrade in the second half of the year. That's maybe where Red Bull won't have anything, but McLaren still will because Red Bull have wasted some money. So we might get a very interesting dynamic here where Red Bull and Max become significantly stronger post-Spain, but then maybe McLaren or even Ferrari or somebody else on the back ends are better positions because they've not wasted the resources that Red Bull have trying to compete in these first few rounds before then everything is getting outlawed regardless. So it's real fascinating, especially for Red Bull, but for Ferrari, it's kind of interesting because they're still committing to this year's car. We'll get to the Red Bull stuff here in just a second, but there's a feeling that the Ferrari is definitely problematic, but the intention of the Scuderia is to say, okay, let's see what happens in Spain. If McLaren get pegged back heavily, if we aren't that badly affected, because every team is developing these new front wings, and frankly has done for some time. I think it even mentioned in the article that, you know, Ferrari have had their front wings developed now for an awful long time, and they will arrive, all the front wings have been rebuilt with the new specifications, which has its impact. But, you know, Ferrari are hopeful it won't affect their car too much. Maybe they benefit because McLaren and even Red Bull and Mercedes potentially get worse. Then they have a major upgrade that they have planned to say, look, this is what the new front wing looks like, and therefore we can customize the new specification they bring to the car, the major upgrade they are planning with the new front wing. So, because if they bring it too early and then the front wing changes, you know, it could change the whole dynamic. So Ferrari are kind of willing to, let's say, play damage limitation for the next couple of rounds, bring an upgrade in Spain with the new front wing, with the intention to say, okay, this is what we've got, and if that's good enough, then they can maybe push on for the championship. And if it's not, at that point, they will effectively give up on the season. That is at least my presumption here. Now, Red Bull are not going to be giving up on the season. They've made it pretty adamant that, look, Verstappen is our title challenger. We will back him to the hilt. And they have a big upgrade ready for Imola. 2 rounds before the technical directive comes into play in Spain, there is Monaco between both of those Grand Prix. But Red Bull say that they apparently have a package worth 0.2 of a second in the simulator. Now, 0.2 is a big deal in the final year of the regs. I mean, the first year of the regulations, often an upgrade would be worth 0.3, something in that kind of ballpark, and that's good going. 0.2 in the final year of the regs is a big upgrade. Like, that's a really substantial upgrade, and 0.2 a lap if the Red Bull got better by that amount, that would put them in a very, very impressive position. On some circuits, they would be completely dominant, I think, with that kind of improvement. And on some circuits, they would be certainly not P8, right? They'd be more like P6, P4, probably significantly better than that. So that would be a big upgrade for Red Bull. And of course, it's not just about lap time, it's about, okay, is the car more compliant? Does the car get into the window easier? That's the big thing for Red Bull, is actually making a car that works as they think it should work. the concern is that Lambiase, of course, that's Verstappen's engineer, but also the likes of Pierre Wache back at the factory, they're not convinced that the data is truthful. Sure, the simulator says, the wind tunnel says 0.2 faster, but have we really seen that translate to reality all that often for Red Bull as of late? They keep saying their correlation is a key issue, and that doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be changing. So Red Bull are concerned about this. They think maybe it's possible that everything's going to be okay, and if the 0.2 of a second comes to fruition, then yeah, Max is going to be in a great spot. But it may be 0.2 with some downsides, or it may be 0.1, or like who knows what actually turns out to be true in reality, because, you know, last year or whenever it was, they had that Hungarian Grand Prix upgrade that they were gassing up and saying it was going to be mega, and then it turned out that it did nothing at all and made the car worse. That was, you know, something that can happen nowadays to Red Bull, it seems. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. I just wanted to close the loop on Ferrari with this comment. The former chairman of Ferrari, Luca Di Montezemolo, he actually gave some interesting comment on this the other day, because he used to be top brass over there, and he made the following comment: the team, Ferrari, has lacked leadership for years. Yes, it lacks soul. They used to work day and night, and the company used to stand for passion, and now they are chasing success almost without a plan. Now, this is quite the statement from the likes of a let me make sure I pronounce it correctly, Di Montezemolo, because look, he used to be, as I say, top dog over there, and look how much he knows about the way that organisation is run. Hamilton, of course, joined and definitely felt like the passion was still, look, the passion's there from the fans, sure. And it feels like the team is still as passionate as ever, but we can't get away from the reality here that the last championship that they won was in 2008, and the most recent drivers was the year prior in 2007 with Kimi Räikkönen, right? So, look, something's obviously gone drastically wrong. Di Montezemolo seems to believe that it's from a cultural perspective internally at the team, and look, at the end of the day, he's put in Vasseur under pressure. Vasseurs been building this team back up over the last couple of years, and from the outside looking in, it feels like he's done a pretty commendable job. But this season, 2025, was meant to be the full stop on the end of that period, right? Like, they'd made some serious progress. 2023, okay, they had a car that was able to get pole all the time, but not win anything. 2024, they finally had a race-winning car that nearly won the championship. This year was meant to be the time they got back to the top, and that's not happened. So why? You know, what is the issue there? And, they're chasing success without a plan. That's what he says about Vasseur. Pretty strong words. Where we'll go from here, we'll see. And just the final thing to mention for you guys is this. Compared to last year, these are the biggest winners and losers. Max has 23 fewer points than he did this time last season. Leclerc has 29 fewer. Alonso has 31 fewer. Sainz, of course, understandably, the biggest loser, going down to Williams. Stroll is +1. Hülkenberg is +2. Gasly is +6. Hamilton's +12. Ocon's +14. Albon, 20 more. I think this time last year he had 0. But the biggest gainers is Piastri, right? +61 points compared to last year. That's mega. Russell has 40 more. Lando has 31 more. So, pretty impressive start to the season for the McLaren boys. Should be no real surprise, but Miami is going to be especially telling, and not just Miami, but the races following it as well. So, very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.